Okay, I'll call this meeting of the City of Kerrville Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Dorothy, will you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Bob Waller,
Here.
Garrett Harmon, Don Barnett,
Here.
Michael Siegerman,
Here.
Rustin Zuber,
Here.
David Jones,
Here.
Marty Leonard.
Here.
Thank you.
Hey, we have a quorum. Number one on the agenda, Visitors Citizens Forum. Any person with business not scheduled on the agenda is encouraged to briefly speak their ideas to the commission. Please fill out the speaker request form, give it to the commission secretary prior to the meeting. The number of speakers be limited to the first 10, and each speaker limited to 3 minutes. No formal action can be taken on these items as the Open Meetings Act requires. Formal action items be posted on an agenda no later than 72 hours before the meeting. If formal action is required, the items will be placed on an agenda for a future meeting. Item number 2 is the consent agenda. All items below in the consent agenda are considered routine or ministerial in nature and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the items will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item 2A is the approval of the minutes from the August 17th, 2000 meeting. It's on page 3. If there are no changes or modifications that need to be made,
I've got one, Bob.
okay.
I was not present, and I'm marked present during that meeting.
Okay. Dorothy, did you get that?
Yes, sir.
The only thing I had on page 5, under 4A, we tabled replat until commissioners receive more information on what is required to approve the plat. I'd like to add in there, we tabled it for lack of specific drainage details. If there's no other modifications, I'll accept a motion.
Also move, accept the minutes as adjusted.
I
second.
have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, number 3 is public hearing in action. 3A is public hearing in action. Annexation and zoning. Public hearing consideration in action for the City of Kerrville to annex into its incorporated limits and recommendation for a zoning classification of District 26-E for an approximately 7.95 acre tract of land adjacent to the incorporated limits, which is out of the F. Rodriguez Survey, number 72, abstract number 280, Kerr County, Texas, located 5263 Highway 27, file number 2017-051. Sabina?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is phase 2 of a two-part annexation that was agreed to a couple of years ago between the Economic Incentive Corporation and the city and Fox Tank Corporation to be annexed into the city. That was part of the agreement. A couple of years ago, the piece of property that's sandwiched in between here that you see, that is zoned E26 today. That is phase 1 of the Fox Tank development, and this would be phase 2 then. The item comes before you for really 2 parts. One is obviously a recommendation, which is a requirement of the Planning and Zoning Commission to have a recommendation to council prior to its taking action on a zoning. The annexation really is more of a planning concept, if you will. So it's a 2-part. It's a recommendation on the zoning, which would be concurrent, which would occur concurrent with the annexation, which is yet to come before the council. That's just a
Okay, this requires a public hearing.
Yes, sir, and I was going to point out just the use of the list of uses that are permitted in that E26.
Thank you.
That would be added to the site. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. This calls for a public hearing. I'll open a public hearing at 4:37. Anybody wishing to make any comments to this commission, please go to the podium. State your name and address, please. Seeing none, hearing none, I close the public hearing at 4:38. Commissioners, questions?
No, since this is part of the economic development plan, this should be included, so I'll make a motion to annex them into the city.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Thank you. 3B is a public hearing and action on a variance. Public hearing consideration and action concerning a request for 3 variances to allow signs to exceed their maximum square footage. 1, a request to allow 2 lighted signs to exceed the maximum square footage of 3 square feet by 16 square feet and 9 square feet respectively. And 2, a request to allow a projected sign to exceed the maximum square footage of 32 square feet by 8 square feet in accordance with Article 2 signs of the Code of Ordinance, City of Kerrville, Texas, located 701 Water Street, file number 2017-47. Sabina?
Thank you. Yes, this is actually an interesting case because you very rarely hear sign variance cases. The sign variance or the sign regulations are in our Code of Ordinances, not in our zoning regulation, nor in our subdivision regulations. This is in a whole separate section of our Code of Ordinances. And where our signs are regulated, the variance provisions state that the Planning and Zoning Commission would hear variances. As you know, the site that we're talking about is just right across the street. It's at the corner of Water Street and Sidney Baker. It's the historic photo that was submitted by the applicant. Gets you a little better picture than the actual location map. And to show you a graphic of the projecting sign that is being requested, the one that is exceeding the maximum allowable square footage by the 8 square feet, it looks like in this photo as if it's actually already existing, but it's not. That's just how the photo technology has really increased over the years. So essentially, this is essentially what the sign would look like. Added to the building. So there are technically 3 variances that are being requested here. One is for that projecting sign, and the other 2 are for the window signs. The current sign regulations only allow 1 window sign if it's lit, and the square footage is limited to 3 square feet. So essentially the applicant is requesting 2 window signs. And so that's the second variance. And then the third one is to be allowed the allowable square footage to increase the 3 square feet, I believe, to 6 square feet, if that's, I'm not mistaken. I'm looking back at Danny. Danny Batts is actually our building official. He is, and the sign regulations are under his purview. If the allowable square footage, the request, right, and the increase is to 6 square feet. I'll let the applicant, there is a representative for the applicant here tonight, and I'll let her answer that question. So essentially, I laid this out in your staff report. There are 8 areas of analysis for a variance. They do appear pretty tough, but essentially what they do is they recognize that in some cases a variance might be a variance from the literal enforcement of the regulation might be or should occur where there is a property right or a property privilege, if you will, that is enjoyed by most property owners in the same or similar districts, same or similar uses, but they're at somewhat of a disadvantage to others. And so the variance granted of those 8 criteria, and I won't go through each one unless you need me to, but they're in your staff report, essentially to elevate them back onto that even level.
I'm not quite sure I understand.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So it would be an increase of the 3 square feet to 16 square feet
They're trying
on the lighted signs.
It's going to be increased to 16 and 9 respectively, which is substantially more.
So you're talking about two window signs, and one of them's gonna be 16 square feet, and one of them's gonna be 9 square feet? Is that what we're talking about?
You don't have a photo of or a rendering of what the window signs would look like, do you?
That's a pretty substantial window sign.
Well, we have a picture of.
Okay, I'll let the applicant step up in just a minute here. Hang on just one second. So
The reason we don't have a drawing up for it is that window signs are exempt from permitting, but they're not exempt from the regulations of what a lighted window sign can be. So we don't have a submitted drawing of the window sign.
Right, essentially what the variance would allow us to do is not to have to go into code enforcement against a window sign. We do that quite often, is my understanding. And essentially what the findings, your findings, those are required essentially, and what I was trying to summarize those to read is essentially to place somebody who would otherwise be at a disadvantage on an even level to others that have that are in the similar situation as far as the zoning and land use goes. So in the staff report, what I laid out is essentially is some points for consideration on those 8 in those the criteria.
I mean, I'd like to take it one at a time.
I can do it.
First of all, I think this requires a public hearing, it's what it says.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
let's
sir.
go ahead and do the public hearing first if we can.
And then I can do that.
Okay, this requires a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 4:45. Anyone wishing to step forward and address the commission, go to the podium and state your name and address, please.
I'll stand up first and speak.
Okay,
I'm Debbie Nielsen, and I'm the property manager of the building.
do you have a current address here, Debbie?
1528 Knapp Road, Kerrville, Texas.
Thank you.
My office is out at Town and Country Business Center, where Rio Ranch is at, but that's where my office, but my home is 1528 Knapp Road.
Thank you.
I've been the property manager for 4 years on that building. And the last tenant we had, his whole reason that he said he failed, and which isn't the whole reason, but it is dark at night. It just, that corner is, you can't light it up. We were so fortunate when Popo's came to town. We've turned down 3 other tenants that could have rented the building, but we were looking for somebody that loved that building as much as we love the history of it, and wanted to take it back to the old days and have a feel you know, with the old-time music going out there and the, you know, their idea of bringing back, there's a pole sticking out. If you look at the old-time picture, there was a big neon sign that was lit up back in the old days there on that corner, and this pole is still hanging out there. And so that's what they're trying to do by bringing that sign for the corner, so when you're coming up Sidney Baker, you don't just see the blank building, you see a business is there. Sort of like the marquee on the movie theater. I think it probably exceeds what's the new rules are for the city. But looking in those windows, if you're able to drive by, whenever there's not a sign in the window that has a little bit of light, it looks like it's closed. And that's the death of any business. And we want Popos to succeed. You know, we want them to be here. They've signed a 10-year lease. They want to be here. They want to be a part of Kerrville. One of the things that I see on the sign regulations is it doesn't matter if your building's 100 feet wide or if it's 20 feet wide. You get 3 square feet. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if my building is this big, I get 3 square feet, but if it's that big, I still get 3 square feet. And so that's where they're saying they would like one on the right-hand side and one on the left-hand side. Because it's compared to all the other businesses down there, it's very wide, the building is, compared to the small entrances, storefronts of the other buildings. So my point is I hope that we relook at the signage and say, boy, something's happening to our downtown, and we want it to grow, and we want it to flourish. And we want people to know there is a downtown and there's businesses in those buildings. And I hope we don't hinder a business from people driving by and knowing that they're open. You know, I had a lot of people come to me and said, I thought you said Popo's was opening, because they had opened up and they're letting the other vendors, the other storefronts, even put their signs and their advertising stuff in their building, trying to help Del Rio grow. If you look down, everybody says, is that place called Farmhouse? No, Farmhouse is down the way. But if you look in their window, there it is. It's just like them bringing in valet. Some people said, oh my gosh, the parking's going to be a major problem. Where are we going to park? That was all over Facebook. Sam went out, got valet parking. It's open to anybody. If you want to go down to Azul's, you can use the valet parking. I mean, we have these people wanting to bring back downtown Kerrville. And we all say, why can't we have a good downtown Kerrville? I would be saying, let's try to bring back and make it look like old times. Let's look at those old time pictures, and you know what? There were some neon signs up there. And I think if you drive by now, it's not like there's a blaring, blinking light. It's just a nice, cool little blue lit light that says Pampel's. But it would be, I mean, Popo's at Pampel's. But it would be nice, because it's so large, to have more than just a little 1 by 3 or 1.5 by 1.5. You know, it's just small. And when you're looking at the total length of the building, it's hard to take notice. But I'm just saying, for downtown, I hope we revisit and maybe give some people some variance to advertise their business. It's not like, they're all real compact, so it's not like Billie Jean's where you've got this big sign, you know, where you can put a big sign out in the very front. We don't have that here. We can't put a billboard out. You can't put a stand-up pole out in the very front. So you got to utilize your corners of your buildings, and whether it be the Italian restaurant or, I mean, you just look at the other ones. They've got signs that are big compared to what you can do on this building. But I just hope we fight for downtown to grow and to flourish and to get businesses going in there. I know the minute Popo's, that very next business that had been sitting empty, they grabbed hold across the street. They're getting offers all the time, and it's because we brought Popo's to Kerrville. And I think we're very blessed to have somebody that wants to keep it back in the old times.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak?
I guess, hi, thank y'all for hearing us out on this sign variance.
Can you give us your name and
I'm
address,
sorry, I
please?
apologize. I'm Sam Bernius. I'm owner of Popo Restaurant. We're just, basically what we're trying to do with this is merge history. You got a 1901 property, a 1929 property. That sign that we have on the corner of that we're proposing on the corner there, it was built, I don't know when, before I was born, but it's funny. Mr. Batts over here, he asked me, he said, "Can you make it smaller?" And I was like, "No." It's not going to get smaller because it's already on the other building, but it's in a bad location, and it's going to cost me X amount of dollars to move it to the front of the building, or I can take it and put it over on this building. And basically, what we want to do is just legitimize the business, basically to show that there is a business on that corner, and basically with the signs, it creates a little bit of a glow in the evening. It creates it to where people can come out in the evening.
Is it a neon sign?
That one on the corner is a neon sign. The one that's in there is like an LED sign on the inside the windows. It makes it easy to clean. You don't have any vandalism, and you're not going to have any storm damage or anything like that. And you got two big windows. We're blessed with big windows at that corner. That's why we're trying to advertise our other vendors that are, or our other store owners that are right down the road. So we're trying to, just, bring that little corner back and light it up. Make sure that, hey, after you go under the sky bridge there, which once you go under there, you know that you're in a good place. Whenever you go someplace at night, your mom always says, don't go down a dark alley. Okay? All right. That's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create a non-dark alley. And so that way, you're in a good place, everything's safe, and everything's good. And so we have the valet parking there. It makes it easy for people to get in and out. And, basically just trying to pump it up a little bit and make sure that everybody knows that where we're at. I think it'll, I've seen since we moved, since I guess people have been or known, I didn't really know that it was going to be this big of a deal. But I'm operating a restaurant out in the middle of a pasture. So, but the thing is that, moving into there, and now that you got somebody renting the place right next to us, and then I noticed somebody's renting the place right across the street from us now. So you got two other businesses, well, actually three other businesses with the valet company that actually has to pay taxes in Kerrville now. That, you got three other businesses that have opened up since I guess we've said that we're going to be here. So we're really happy to be here. I mean, Danny and the whole staff over here, everybody's been really good to us, and we've appreciated everybody's help and trying to get moved in. So, but I appreciate it. If there's anything, I don't, once again, the other thing is I don't want to change the laws for anybody else to come in and do something that is, I appreciate the having to be here at the variance, because I don't want somebody else to come in and make, something else that doesn't adhere to what the, I guess, to what the residents want. So I appreciate, being here. So,
Let me ask one question.
sure.
The signs in the windows, is that already there?
I got one of them up, and they
Just
told
the
me.
one that's on the right
Yeah,
side?
well, it's on the Water Street side,
Yeah.
and then I want to put one on the Sidney Baker side, just so that way, whether you're coming or going on Sidney Baker or on Water Street, that on both sides you'll notice what the name of the restaurant is, and then we'll have a historic sign brought over and put on the corner of the building, just to kind of, like I
That's
said,
not-
give it a little
that sign's not
legitimacy.
there. That's an old sign.
So
Yeah.
your sign that's already in the window is?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can go look across the street
no,
right there. Right now.
It conforms or it's a non-conforming?
It's a non-conformance.
So you put the sign in, it was non-conforming?
Well, they told me to go ahead and put it in there.
Who is
They said there's nothing gonna happen because I'm not gonna get fined for it because I'm already got a variance in. So I just went ahead and put it in there so that y'all could look at it and see it for what it is. And I just it's I can unplug it and it's still gonna look the same. So it really, unless it's dark outside.
Is there a wall? I thought on the Sidney Baker side, that was a wall. Is there a window there too?
There's a window there as
Because they
well.
always had stuff like on a blackboard or something.
Yeah, there was a blackboard over there, but like right before that blackboard, there's another window.
Okay, you got
And
one.
so-
They're
yeah.
both similar.
Yeah, relatively similar, and that's why we just wanted to put a sign in both.
Okay, can we just find out what the sign ordinance said? How big, what's the size of the sign now? And then how much bigger is this sign gonna
We
be?
have to close the public hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, sorry.
Okay,
Last comment.
okay.
Just a food for thought. Can you imagine the water fountain down there underneath the bridge without the lights on it? Nobody'd even know it was there. The city did a beautiful job putting all those lights on that water fountain, and the light on the fish. It draws attention, doesn't it? Nobody else would go down there if it wasn't for those lights popping and shining. We're not asking for flashing lights. We're not asking for big gaudy lights. We're just asking to advertise the business like everyone else is able.
Okay, I guess our only concern is we'll talk about that after the public hearing.
Yeah.
Any other comments? We appreciate y'all being here. We like popos in Kerrville.
Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, once again, I mean, I'm willing, because I didn't get the other sign for the Sidney Baker side, because I can actually put a sign up in the window that size. It just can't be lit. Okay? So what I did is that I have it lit right now, but if you don't want me to light it, I'll unplug it. And then, if anybody asks me why it's not lit, I'll say, well, we can go back, we do another public hearing if you want to go. But the thing is that it's lit right now, and I haven't had really a whole lot of complaints about it. And so I put one up just to, prove a point so that way y'all could see it and there wouldn't be a whole lot of debate over it, as far as just understanding what exactly we're trying to do. Because I understand whenever you put like 10 or 12 flashing open signs in a window, or you put a beer sign in a window, it doesn't work. It makes it trashy looking. It degrades the downtown historical, side of things. And so I don't want to do that. I want to just raise it up a level, make it lit, so that way whenever you walk in or you drive by, you can see the sign, everything's up and running, and we're going to be a part of the community. So
The
that's
sign
basically it.
is okay. It's that it has that blue light.
It just has a little bit of light.
And it's not
it's an LED light that
Well,
just
I
kind of
think
glows.
there's more questions than just the lighting. It's the size variance as well.
Well, there's not a size variance. I'm sorry. There's not a size variance on it. It's a size variance on a lit sign. Now,
Okay. If it's unlit, you don't have that.
yeah,
same-
if I unplug it, then there's no
Okay.
variance with it. That's
Okay,
why I
that-
went ahead and put it in.
That
If we
clarifies it.
measured the light area, we would be within, but they count the whole sign.
Okay, no,
Even though the
that
whole
clarifies
sign's
it,
not lit
thank
up.
you.
Yeah.
Okay,
If you just take the lit part, we're in conformance, but if you take the entire sign that's there, they take that as the lit sign. And
Okay.
it's really not, it's just that little blue section that's there is lit.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is lit, but it's, it only gives a glow,
okay,
basically.
thank
So,
you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Anybody else to speak in the public hearing? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing at 5:02. Commissioners,
Well, I'd like to take it one at a time and ask some questions. And I don't care whether you start with the inside sign or the outside sign, whichever one you want to start with for the variances. So take your pick.
Okay. Well, basically, the analysis that I did was really to take all of the variances together. And so this is from the sign code, which, as I said, is a separate code. And I will tell you that this language mirrors what normally the language that we see at the zoning board of adjustment. However, this ordinance specifies that it's a planning and zoning commission, so it's more of a legislative style of decision versus more of a judicial style of decision. So basically, that there are exceptional circumstances that are unique to the property in this case. And one of the things that I just as a point of consideration for you that I wrote out is the location of the building itself. The history that was talked about, and also potentially the history of success of businesses at this location. Like I was talking about, possibly trying to weigh that, placing this property on a more even keel with similarly situated properties.
Mike, I mean, I'm real happy Popo's here, and I want to work out a way to have the signs work, but, I mean, just trying to understand what you're saying. This building is downtown, it has exceptional circumstances because of all the other buildings that are downtown in the area are not as limited as this building is for signage? Is that what you're saying?
I'm throwing that out there as food for thought. It's ultimately it's your decision and your this commission's weighing of that, and that those special conditions result in hardship. Basically, hardship being a lowering of that of the business potential really here that is not that is enjoyed by others and would
So
not.
there's other restaurants in the immediate downtown area that have better signage than this building? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what's before you as a question.
Danny,
I would have.
could Danny make some comments on?
I'd like to have the answer.
Your
I don't know
thoughts?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think you guys should have the answers to that question. Go ahead, Danny.
Well, basically, the ordinance is where we are. The ordinance allows for a one-lighted window sign per business in the city of Kerrville. That sign is limited, as a lit sign is limited to 3 square feet. So we enforce that, and it must remain static. He doesn't have a digital sign, like the open flashing signs and whatnot. So it's got to remain static. It can't be doing all that. So are there other signs in the city of Kerrville? If they are, they're non-conforming. I'm not aware of them. We haven't issued any new permits for window signs or for the square footage increases of the projecting sign. It's basically, that's why the variance process is there. So what question can I answer for you about?
From the interior signage, there's probably at least three restaurants that are within a stone's throw of this restaurant. I mean, I can think of Rails and Grape Juice and Cartwheels, and are their signage superior to the signage in this building?
I don't know if they would be superior, but they conform to
They conform
code.
to code.
So they have their signs are all the 3 foot and
Well, if, I don't know of the window sign, if there's a window sign on Cartwheels, they have a wall sign. I haven't actually been to Cartwheels, but they have a wall sign outside where Pampel's doesn't. They could have a wall sign, but they don't, so.
And the sign, proposed sign that's on the corner that's outside,
Mhm.
that's a variance from what would be allowed?
Yeah, we allow, for a projecting sign, we allow 32 square feet. And he has a sign that's, like I said, an older sign that he has at another restaurant that is already built, had it, I guess it's been built since
So it's
before he
not
was
this
born.
sign that he's projected on there, it's something else?
It's
No,
that
it's
sign.
that-
It is
that's
that
the
sign.
actual-
It's
That
just,
sign is bigger
it's
than
just at
32
another
square feet.
location he's gonna
about
bring
40.
here, and it exceeds the square footage by 8 square feet, you know, so that's why he's applying for the variance.
Okay, we're still jumping back and forth between signs.
Okay?
A sign in the window can only be 3 square feet
Yes,
If it's lit.
that's lit. The sign that you have shown photoshopped here in the window is how big?
I have not seen the square footage of that.
That's an old Pampel sign, I think.
There's another, well, I did provide.
Well, okay, let's make it simple. How much bigger than 3 square feet is the sign that you want to put in, the lighted sign that you want to put in the window?
It's 16 square feet versus 3.
There's 2 of them, and one of them, I think, if it's right.
One of them is 9 and the other one is 6. Is that what that means?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with the 3
Yes.
square feet by 16 square feet.
It
Right.
exceeds the maximum square footage of 3 by 16 and by 9.
Okay, so, all right.
The signs in your window that you have lighted right now, okay, 16 square feet, that's like 4 feet by 4 feet. Well, what's the dimensions of the sign in your window that you have now that you have plugged in, but you could unplug it? What's the dimensions? What by what?
I believe it's 3 by 3.
So that's 9 square feet.
9 square, the 9 foot, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
And that's,
Well, I mean, yeah, in the window.
that's the ones you want.
Yeah, it fits the window.
Okay. And the one on the other side is gonna be the same? or-
It'd just be the same, I mean,
Okay.
it's just, you know,
No,
Keep
what's
the-
gonna be
yeah.
16 square feet?
they'll make the sign guy work
This
harder.
one's more like 16. That's more
So
than,
what you're asking for, as opposed to having 2 signs, I mean, 3 by 3 is pretty small. I mean, 3 square feet is pretty small, that's almost
Yeah, that'd be
non-existent.
a
You
1 by
want
3.
like a 3 foot by 3 foot, 2
Yeah.
3 foot by 3 foot lit signs.
Yeah, that's basically what we
Okay.
measured it out to.
So I understand the interior. Now, the sign that's outside, the ordinance allows for 32 square feet?
Yes, sir.
And what is the dimension of the sign you want to put outside, Sam?
Says,
It's the one that's on the
It's
general
40
sign.
says 55 square feet.
This one.
It's an antique sign.
Okay,
Well, but I mean,
see
how
the
big
sign.
is
I'm
it?
just curious.
It's
what
40.
it says
And
32.
the square
But this
footage,
is-
I think that they put
It's
it on the.
40
by
square
11.
feet is what it calculates out to be.
40, so it's
40
eight,
square feet.
8 square feet bigger than,
Correct. That's correct.
I'm sorry, how big are you saying?
well, it's 40 square feet.
Well, what, the diagram underneath the picture says 5 by 11.
That's why I said, I mean, I was refer back to the picture. 'cause
So it's
I'm not an
55
engineer
square
or-
feet.
The one I show on the projecting sign says 5 by 8. I think that's
Eight,
that's
that's
slide.
eight.
8 or 11?
That's 8.
It's a slide that I have.
5
It's
by 8.
blurry on our end.
Okay,
Okay, so 40.
forgive me.
My opinion is, I think the signage is fine for what you're trying to do. My only question is, and I understand what you're saying, you really want to make everything nice, but if we do a variance for the signs you want to do, and then someone else comes along and wants to do a variance for the signs they want to do, we're probably going to have to approve a variance for something like that. Is that correct?
May I say?
Let me get her to answer.
That's one of the reasons that we have those 8 criteria is, and one of the reasons that, that my recommendation is that you have some findings based on those 8 criteria, so that if we have a very similar situation, then I think it would be really difficult to deny, yes.
Well, the
But if we have a
variances-
different
The variances are
situation-
essentially built on hardships.
Yes,
So if
In
we
this
grant a
case.
variance, it's because of some perceived hardship for the tenant. Correct?
Yes, and the hardship needs to stem from the unique and special conditions of
Yes,
the property.
The condition, the location, and the circumstances and the history, which has been explained here, that a client left because they felt that they didn't appear to be open when they may have been open. There wasn't enough lighting, and I can see that at Pampel's. I mean, you never really can tell if it's open or closed, to tell you the truth. So that, I can see that there's been a history of that.
So can I ask you what's on the sign? I know what's up, I see the sign outside, what's on your wall signs inside?
It's
What
this
does
up
it
here, I
say?
think.
It just says Popos in the windows?
Chicken, steaks, and seafood.
That's what's on them?
It's just basically, it's a marquee
Okay.
with, at Pentel's on it, I mean, and, sorry.
And those are the lit signs in the
Those are the ones that are
Okay.
in the window. It's basically like a lit sign, but, and what I would be, and what I would, if I was to ask y'all, and if we are to, if you were to grant us the variance, I would actually say that you would demarcate this under a historical variance. And so that way, if somebody else that has another historical property that they want to, merge with Kerrville or whatever at any given time, that they get the same historical demarcation, their variance granted to them. But I wouldn't, I wouldn't try to give it to anybody else. It just, it would have to be a historical demarcation on the variance. That's what I was going to say earlier. But yeah, as far as the sign, it's basically the same sign that we have up at the other restaurant. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Questions?
This is my first time. I don't know if I need to sit down or.
Thank you very much.
All right. Sorry.
Danny, do you get a say on
You need to see a picture.
No, we're good.
on your thoughts?
You know, my thought is that the downtown core needs new businesses, and I think that Popo's adds a lot to the downtown core. It's going to bring a lot of folks down here. I'm not, I enforce the sign ordinance. I'm not necessarily against the signs. So I think it's a good addition to downtown. And so I would think you should consider the
I
request.
like the aspect that the lighted sign that's hanging on the corner is historic. That adds something to me, and the variance to that is 25%, where these other variances are substantially more.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, those are multiples,
Make a difference. I
as
agree with
opposed to percentages.
Right.
And so I think, having that historic sign, I personally don't have a problem with that. I like it because it's already existing. The other signs, I wouldn't need a sign myself because just the rumor got me to Pampel's because I've been to their other place. And,
Popos.
Popos.
At Pampel's.
Just because I've been to their other place. So
Right.
the rumors get around pretty quick, but I also understand that sometimes I have the same problem Don said. When you drive by, you're not sure if it's open. But there are things that that you could put in place that would be in compliance, maybe an open sign, and still have your others, I think, to use an old phrase, getting your cake and eat it too. I think the variance you're asking for on these window signs are substantial. And they create a disintermediation with the other businesses. I appreciate the historical aspect to the sign, the historical aspect of the building. But the question is, do we need a big lighted sign on the corner that's neon, and also 2 lighted signs in the windows?
Well, I think you do, and the reason I do is because I think the history of Pampel's, it's difficult to see if the store is open. I think the other locations have another unique problems for their location, but Pampel's has had an unfortunate history because of its location, parking and signage. And I agree with the sign that's gonna be up on the corner, the antique sign, I think is an outstanding looking presentation. But I don't think it's gonna harm to have two window signs. As people drive by, they need to know the store's open, or the restaurant's open.
I agree.
I mean, I agree with Don. I think number one, that the sign on the building is, I think it's a tremendous addition to the downtown area. I think it's gonna generate interest from other businesses, like you say. I think that the interior signs being 3 square feet is almost non-existent. I think a 3 foot by 3 foot interior sign that's low lit, it's not flashy or anything. I mean, personally, I think anything we do to make this business prosper, it's our responsibility to do that. That's my
Have y'all tried lighting under that awning? Is that, are there light fixtures under the awning right now?
We've put a couple of extra light fixtures in place due to, just the insurance, to make sure the insurance, because we have to keep the ground lit at night, but it does not, it's not like a bright, flat, it's nothing that you can show into the building, or, I mean, I could, basically, that's what I was gonna say, is that, I mean, if we don't do that, then I can unplug the sign, and I'll just put a big old floodlight and shine it onto the sign. It doesn't matter, one half doesn't or another, but, the whole, aspect of we were testing a couple of can lights that are brand new, that kind of just shine down. But we have those up on the front part of it, but I haven't talked to the property owner yet on what their thoughts are, because they own the building, so they have to approve those the rest of the can lights on the outside.
I do like the fact that that window sign says Pampels. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
As opposed to the Popo, just the Popo sign?
Yeah.
Which one's gonna be in the window?
Well, I did
Popo's
put
had
Well, it shows Pampels though.
That's an old sign.
Do you have
That's not it.
the folder that I gave?
That's an old
that I
photo,
sent
Bob.
to y'all?
These are the window signs?
This is the window.
There's,
Okay.
well, I mean, I have the
You
one
can
that's
fix
the
it.
proposed.
It's just like
You
this
have the
picture right here.
folder.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking at, as opposed to this one.
That's one of the windows, that's an old picture.
Okay, but what they're saying is
Yeah,
that,
that's already off of there.
Yeah, that's
That
off.
one says
This is
stick
the
on.
window
so
sign.
you got the new ones hanging in there now,
This one is there and it's lit and you just, I mean,
Well,
it's very,
phone on.
and it's gonna be 3 by 3 or 4 by
Right.
4.
3 by 3?
yeah.
That's
The
Well,
thing
you're
of it
asking-
is these windows are so huge.
Right.
Yeah.
And the storefront is so big. So when they did the sign ordinance, making it 3 square feet, they weren't basing it on, to me, it would be, you can have
A percentage
a
of the window.
percentage of the window.
I agree.
No, I like that, thank you for
Pretty
clarifying.
3 square
Yeah,
feet, because
that's-
that's like what, 1.5 by 1.2 by 1.5?
Yeah.
That's what that
It's
is.
it's pretty small.
Okay, but the other sign looks just like that, but it's,
Just smaller.
no, it's larger.
Well, you got one that's 16, one that's
Wish I
not.
would've
No,
brought
both of
my
the,
folder
both of
now.
the window signs are the same size,
Yeah,
correct?
That's-
Sam, both of the window signs are this one, right?
They
Both
showed-
of them-
they
both
showed
of them-
different sizes.
Both of them are this one, and then there's one that, if you look at the old, picture of the restaurant, there's a neat sign, but it's gonna be actually a part of the building. So it's not really, there's not a sign variance on that one.
Okay.
So it's really, there's a little black piece of plywood right across the front door.
Yeah, we're just
that will
talking
have-
about the window
Yeah,
signs.
yeah.
You're gonna have 2
But
window
those
signs,
are
they're both
two
gonna
of
be
them.
3 feet by 3 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, whatever size, I think they're
Well,
3 by
yeah.
3.
Then- then-
It's up there, it's up there right now in the window.
Are they gonna be the same
Where's
size?
the 16?
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Say
And that
again?
makes it
Where's the
uniform for
16?
the windows.
I think this
Because
is
you've
not
got this
right. I
big
think-
window, if you just do this big on a huge window.
Well, what we're trying to do is just keep down the cost of, if you have an outdoor sign, and I was told that you could put like a sign like McDonald's or, they have those outdoor block signs that you can go on the side of the walls, and I could do that. And now, I wouldn't even have to be here right now, but I don't think it looks as
Doesn't
good.
look- you-
I think it looks
This looks better.
tacky.
I like
and
your
you're-
signs.
you're-
I really
yeah,
do.
you-
This is
you
tasteful.
You degrade the downtown area, so I didn't wanna do that, so, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, well, I'd like to go through and clarify again what we're talking about. I understand the corner sign lighted neon sign is about 40 square feet, 8
5
by
by
5. I want to make sure the size of the window signs, because we say here, 2 lighted signs to exceed the maximum square footage of 3 square feet, exceed 3 square feet by 16 and 9 respectively. That tells me those signs are 2 different sizes. The window signs.
Well, there is
That
one,
9 is 18. 9 is 18, and you're allowed 3, so it's 15. I don't know where they came up.
Are they both the same size though, the window signs?
the window signs are the
And
same
they're like
size.
9 square feet?
The only one that we had in question whenever I was actually putting this together, because we were kind of going through a change with the city at that point in time. I guess the person that was normally, was here prior to was not here. And then whenever I talked to Mr. Batts, he had actually told me that the sign that I'm actually putting in the front door over the entryway, that's actually part of the building. So that's not actually a
Regulated.
We're not talking.
window sign.
I think what
But
Bob
yeah,
is
but-
saying, tell us what
you
the,
might-
What
you
is the
might
size,
be-
basically, they're asking, what is the size of your?
2 window signs.
Are they 3 by 3?
Yeah, I measured them out 3 by 3.
And both of them are 3 by 3?
They're gonna be the exact same size.
So you're
Okay.
9 square
So
feet.
Nine
what,
square
what
feet.
we're what you're looking for is a variance to have 2 9-foot square interior signs on the windows and 1 40-foot outside sign. That's what we're looking for.
Yes.
That's what the variance is for.
Yes.
That's it.
Lighted.
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 Yes, lighted.
But lighted, but the thing is, yeah, I mean, I can
Okay,
unplug it if you want.
That clarifies it then. So you're looking for the corner sign's gonna be 40 square feet, variance of 8 square feet, and 2 window signs that are gonna be 9 square feet versus 3.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
9 and 9.
Right.
No,
correct.
yeah,
9 and 9
no, we
versus
understand.
1, 3.
They're
Two
each 9 square
signs.
feet.
Right.
Didn't that say
Okay.
11 by 5 right there, the dimension of
That's
that?
what I just brought
Yeah,
up.
but
If they
it's
tell
5
me
by
that
8.
it's confused, it's 8.
It's
Don't-
5
don't-
by 8, yeah.
Don't write all
ask
this
me.
in a
That's, it
minute.
looks like 11 to me.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Good.
No.
Putting it in perspective, in other words, lighted signs are gonna be 3 times bigger than what they should be, the interior signs, and the exterior sign is gonna be some 20 or 25% larger than
8
what's
feet,
it.
yeah, 8 square feet.
Okay, that right? And I'm Don, I think your point was very well made, that for the window signs, that they should be a percentage of the window.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, but we're not writing
We're
code
not
here today.
changing code.
Yeah, I know.
We
It's
just
a
do a
variance.
variance.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance for the 2 interior lighted window signs at 9 square feet each, and the exterior lighted sign at 5 feet by 8 feet.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And I have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign, passes 5-0. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
What's for dinner tonight?
Fried chicken.
Are there coupons?
Chicken, steak, and seafood. And then steakhouse, broiler over there, they make some really good steak.
All right, we'll be over there.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Okay, 3C on the agenda, public hearing and action, text amendment, public hearing consideration and action concerning a text amendment adding home occupation regulations to Chapter 1, Article 11-119, home occupation regulations, file number 2017-027.
Thank you. This item has been before you several times. One of you could probably give this presentation better than I could. So basically, the last version that came before you was declared ready for public hearing by this commission, and that is the same version that is before you now. So just to summarize here, it does have it adds a registration requirement without a fee. So basically, this would be information that the planning department would keep and make sure that it meets the regulations. It does restrict the employees to the residents only, restricts the percentage of the home occupation of the dwelling to 25%. All storage would need to be enclosed, and also that there would not be any alteration to the residents. There could certainly be residential alterations, but nothing that would alter the residents to have it look that it's no longer a residential style building. And then it also has restrictions in there for equipment, nuisances, deliveries, and traffic, basically anything that would not be in keeping with a residential use. Signs, there are two options. One is that, well, certainly, in either case, non-illuminated, but then either a flush-mounted sign of a maximum of 1 square feet, or a freestanding small 6 square foot sign, maximum height of 3 feet if it's 20 feet, and then at least 20 feet back from the right-of-way. The uses that would be permitted are office, tutoring, and with restrictions as far as numbers of people that could be at the property at any one day. Counseling, therapy, author, your creative types, sewing of various natures, small repair, and arts and crafts making. Prohibited uses would be retail and wholesale, vehicle repair, animal breeding and other types of animal uses, kennels, those types of things. Large item repairs, firearms, sales, medical offices. Well, the medical offices and the barber and the beauty and the nail salon would be mainly because of the chemicals that would have to be present at the site. Oops. And so this item is on tonight for public hearing before we take this on to as a recommendation to City Council. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, this calls for a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 5:29. Anybody wishing to address the commission, approach the podium and give us your name and address, please. George.
Okay, George Birdie, 1616 Glen Road, and I'm here because I have a home occupation, so it's not because I'm city council. So my questions are kind of, I understand what the purpose of all of it is, and I'm not sure I have the current text of it, but if I do, there's some vagueness to it that, in the past I've had issues with, like where the definition is. Does it still say which is clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the premises for residential purposes? If it says that was under, I guess, 57, the actual definition of it. If it still says that seems like, clearly incidental. I'm not so sure that anything is clearly incidental. So I would urge you to clarify that a little better. But the main thing that I have issues with is, one, I've heard it talked about before, the registration. I feel like that's an overreach. But you'll understand a little more. Basically, under the purpose it says, which, all these things, which creates little exterior indication of the activity and which does not create a nuisance or otherwise adversely impact the health, safety, or welfare. To me, that's what you should be regulating, not what's causing the noise or causing the whatever. Whatever is exterior to display that makes it seem like this is a residential. For instance, we've got an issue. One of them is space and location. Okay, you say the maximum area for use is 25%. If that's all being done inside, I'm a computer consultant, okay, so mine's completely inside the home. There's no noise, nobody's coming to me, but by doing this, you're basically regulating something that really doesn't affect anybody else. The amount of space I use within my home for computer consulting it's allowable at a bigger percent than that for IRS, which mine is. I actually have a larger percent being reported that way. And this would essentially make me have to change that, and I'm not sure it effectively does anything as far as the residential look of the neighborhood. Storage, we talk about, attached garage permitted, outside storage in conjunction with a home occupation shall be prohibited. Okay, I understand the reason to not have outside storage, but why are you attacking home occupation? Why not just make outside storage not allowed in a residential area, which is truly what you're trying to accomplish. Equipment, it says installation or storage of any equipment or machinery not normally found in a household or general office. Okay, so if I have a home occupation, I can't put a wood shop. But if it's not a home occupation, I can have a wood shop at my home, causing the same noise issues for the neighborhood. That seems, again, if we're trying to get at the noise, then write an ordinance for residential zone affecting the noise, not so much a home occupation. Deliveries, no big trucks being delivered if it's a home occupation. I can tell you I've had something delivered to my home, having nothing to do with my occupation, that came in a big 18-wheeler. And so, that's another one that I would end up being out of violation because I actually have a home occupation, even if the delivery wasn't tied to it. So I would just say if the goal is truly about exterior indications, what keeps the character of the residence the same, then write an ordinance that has to do with residential zone, attacking those exterior references, and not so much worry about what's inside the home out of view. If it's a legal activity, then it shouldn't be a problem as long as it's not affecting the outer view. And that's pretty much my stance. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments for the commission? If not, I'll close the public hearing at 5:34. Commissioners? One of my comments, I guess we used the word city planner in here several times. Is that proper now? Are we not restructuring that area? Should that be developmental services, or just a question?
That's a good point. We could probably clarify that in the language. I'm sorry, in the definitions that city planner or whatever closely fits that job function.
Okay.
You're right. We do have different terminology all throughout different codes, so we should probably just define it and make it more broad that way.
I am interested in what George said, reference to a conforming use and the percentage of the use inside the house, because I never thought about the fact if you run a home-based business and for tax purposes you're using 50% of your house for your business, and that's what you're using for your tax return, and the city is saying you can only use 25%, I think that might be an infringement. As long as I agree with you. I mean, we put this thing together based on a lot of issues with the neighborhoods and the neighbors and everything, and I think a lot of the stuff, some of the stuff you commented on, I'm not in agreement with, but I do think that that's an interesting point. That
Can't we just increase the 25% to what the IRS allows?
IRS guidelines.
George, what are IRS guidelines that you, for your house?
I mean, it can be whatever percent it is.
Could be 100%?
It has to be in your home. It has.
Whatever gives you a better tax break is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with
But you
that.
have to defend it.
Yeah, but you gotta defend it, yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta have
but
it,
The way you
yeah.
defend it is,
Yeah, but
the
you
IRS,
can use your bathroom as part of that as well.
the IRS standard
You can.
is
I
the
like
area
that.
that you're saying is for business use can only be for business use. And if they were to come in and check, you have to be able to show them, it doesn't have to be a closed door. It has to be just an area that doesn't have mixed use. So if my computer office, if you will, is here, I can call that as long as that room isn't being used or that area isn't being used for something else. You can do that with any part of your house. So that's what that's about. As far as the others, though, I mean, I would, like I said, well, it's not the public hearing. I just strongly urge you to pay attention to the fact that you're creating inconsistencies within the residential zone. If you only tie these restrictions to a home occupation, you're still going to have the issue of the bad results from a homeowner. Like I said, with the workshop, things like that, you're not actually going to accomplish something because the noise problems and the viewing of stuff is going to be out there because the residences, if it's not for an occupational use, are still allowed to do those same
Yeah, but
things.
George, that's gonna come under a separate, I think that would come under a separate ordinance, because just because you don't have a business in your house doesn't mean you can run machines in your house that make a substantial amount of noise and bother your neighbors. If your neighbors don't complain, I guess you can, but if you live next door to me and you're woodworking as a hobby and you're woodworking and making loud noise and creating a lot of dust, I'm gonna call the city.
Right, but see what I'm
It has nothing to do with the business.
Exactly, that's my point. So what you're actually writing here is extraneous code, because the noise, whether it's from a business or not, is already covered. And if it wasn't covered, you'd want to write the code to be an umbrella over the residential zone, not how that noise is being created. Like storage of pipes in a backyard. If it's for an occupation, can't do it. If it's my home and it's not for occupation, I can. So again, back to your example, you're a neighbor, and say I'm storing it in plain sight of my backyard, you can't do anything about it because it's not for occupational use. It's for residential use. So if you had it for the zone, then you don't need it for this.
Understand that, George,
yeah.
but that's, I mean, what you're saying is technically true, but I think there's a big difference between you storing a bunch of old washing machines and dryers and pipe and everything in your backyard when you don't have a business. There's a very large chance that's never gonna happen. You're not gonna have 15 old refrigerators or old air conditioners in your backyard if you're not doing a business.
Well,
I mean, you can,
left.
you can,
Yeah.
I mean, technically you can say that's true. You live next door to me, you're not running a pipe business, you can store 50,000 square feet of pipe as much as you get in your backyard, and I can't do anything about it. But that's highly unlikely.
I would challenge you that you have a business purpose.
Yeah, but if
Yeah.
it wasn't, like I said, what you want is to have the activity be regulated, the actual result of the activity. That's what you really want to get at. So you want a code that actually is strong enough to get that.
That's what our intention was to make the code stronger.
That's not what was brought before us.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. This is leaving work for you to do later, because the next step is going to be, well, we got the home occupation. They can't do it that way. Now we're going to have to write a separate one. So now we've got the extra stuff.
That may be true, but
right.
this is something.
No, this has been in place. We actually cleaned this
Yeah,
up.
we
We've
cleaned it
been
up.
cleaning
This
this
has
up
already
over the
been in
last couple of
place.
months.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't in place. The excess definition isn't in
No,
place.
the only thing that's been in place at this point is the definition.
Right.
It hasn't given the
They don't-
city any authority.
To enforce
To
it, that's what
enforce it.
we've done. We've given them the ability
Right.
to enforce the home business. This is about home businesses and a way to have the city to be able to enforce, because they're dealing right now with all kinds of non-conforming home businesses, and they really haven't had a way to deal with it. Now they
To
have a
narrow
way
it
to deal
down.
with it. And I understand your point, but, I mean, I think it's a bit of a reach when you're talking about people that can do some of these things if it's not their business, as opposed to us regulating the business. I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said,
we're trying to do something that helps the neighborhood not have to deal with businesses that shouldn't be there, and if the businesses are there doing things they shouldn't be able to do, like storing a bunch of garbage in the backyard or storing whatever, because they're in the plumbing supply business running out of their house, but they've got a whole backyard of plumbing supplies in their backyard that neighbors
Yeah.
look at every day, so.
yeah.
I mean, nothing's perfect, but
Yeah.
But
Well,
I do think your point is taken about the IRS, and I don't have a home-based business, so I don't know.
Well, it sounds like that's gonna be a person-by-person case, depending on how much they're claiming on their return, right? It depends on the business.
That gets into the whole registration. I don't have to, I mean,
Exactly,
anything.
exactly, so,
Right, all you have to do is register that you have a home-based business, so your neighbors,
and I will say the registration part of it, I remember the justification for that was if said neighbor calls, hey, there's something going on here, the city can say, hey, we know about it. And that's,
Actually, what the planner said, Gordon said that day, was he goes, it's so that a guy that's moving in can call and ask how many.
that too,
businesses
same
are
thing, yeah.
Well, I'm a computer consultant. Why is that something, I mean, it gets into the whole, you guys said it in that meeting, that it wasn't about Big Brother, but that's what that one feels like, truthfully. Because again, he can see the pipes in the backyard, he doesn't need to be registered, he knows that there's something I don't want in my neighborhood.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? I presume everybody's read through this. A couple of typos, but as far as what we talked about, the only thing I had on page 20, which is under prohibited, uses prohibited home occupations, it says, the very first sentence, except as specifically authorized. The following are prohibited. Is there a process for dealing with something that's prohibited? Is there a way to get around that? Just
look
not
at it,
sure
see
where
if there's
somebody
anything.
would go or how they would go about getting something authorized specifically that otherwise was prohibited.
Right, I'm just making sure that we don't have conditional use permits for any of those in the residential. No, that's probably superfluous language that could be struck.
Yeah, just, and just say the following uses
Are
are
prohibited.
prohibited.
Mhm.
Yep.
It talks about retail wholesale sales in here a couple of times. I mean, if somebody's doing tailoring at their home, which is an approved home occupation, they're going to be either retailing or wholesaling. They're going to be doing one or the other. So, might not hurt to have think about a definition for retail and wholesale sales. Because anytime money's exchanged for a product or service, that's a retail sale or wholesale.
but if you're doing tailoring, you're not really selling something.
You're selling your service.
That's what-
Services and
that's what-
products are the
That's what
same
they all do,
thing.
that's what all homemade businesses are.
Well,
George is selling
that's-
his service, Rustin's selling his service.
That's what I'm saying. To me, that's kind of contradictory. By saying you have a home-based business, which automatically thinks something's going to be produced or sold. And yeah, we're not allowing retail or wholesale sales. I mean, if you take it off-site to your next door neighbor, you can sell it, but you can't sell it at your house. And that's what happens. I don't care if it's daycare, I don't care if it's dancing lessons, tutoring, piano lessons. You're selling a service.
Yeah, but I don't,
I guess my question is, do we even need to address retail or wholesale? You can't display products and stuff. A lot of the stuff, I mean, it's gonna be good if somebody's abusing something and the city comes out and gets a complaint, and now they have some ammunition to say you can't do that. And here's the penalty for doing it. But to me, that's kind of a contradiction.
well, I don't know what the definition of retail or wholesale sales is, but I don't think that,
You don't have to be the storefront to sell something at retail.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that's selling your service. I I don't think that's,
What do you think a tutor does when they charge for their service?
I think that's a service, it's not retail or wholesale sales.
I beg your pardon, it is, but that's why it needs to be, maybe have a definition, because it is definitely a sale. You're selling your service, you either sell a service or a product, that's the only two things you sell.
Well, and then I'm not a CPA, but from an accounting standpoint, it's you know, it's accounted.
It's
as-
revenue.
It's revenue.
Income.
Yeah, it's a sale. It's a revenue.
Well, any home-based business is revenue.
Oh,
no matter
yeah,
what it
Exactly,
is.
yeah, so.
But that's what I'm saying, this says
So
you
we're-
can't do that.
So retail, I'm with you, retail, we think of a storefront, you know, or an exchange and,
Well, I
but
guess we
Bob,
need to
Bob,
figure-
Bob
we
as a
need to
banker is
find
on.
out what the definition
We
of
can
retail
tighten that
sales
up.
is, because
Yeah.
Mike, you might have an opinion of this, but I don't think.
I was actually trying to stay out of this. You know, and full disclosure, so I came down here because I am completely behind the curve on this. You know, I got notice of this, I guess, earlier this week, and I didn't realize that it percolated up to this level. But I've heard some really interesting discussion and good arguments. I think Mr. Baruti brings up some good policy arguments. And what I suggest, you know, I hate to be the kind of the cog in the wheel, but as I listen to this, you know, I'm always putting on kind of my prosecutorial hat, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, so when we have the neighbor, for instance, that's complaining about the piano teacher and all of the traffic and the books that are coming periodically, I mean, I took piano for 10 years, I kind of know the piano, that's an occupation. And we have to address that in some form or fashion. Whether we exclude that, yeah, that's right. I mean, my piano teacher, that's what she did for a living. So we need to address that. And bottom line, what I'd recommend doing is let me, and again, I apologize for just now getting involved and being a kind of a cog, but tap the brakes a little bit. Let me look at this. Let me kind of massage it in a way that I think could help. Certainly, again, from, you know, very rarely do we prosecute this stuff, but that's kind of where my mind is. And so let me address that stuff. I think, again, Mr. Baruti brings up the good point about kind of the IRS. And I think there's always a balance here. And this is a balance, you know, just because we adopt this doesn't mean that a homeowner that's not involved in some sort of occupation or business can all of a sudden have a nuisance. I mean, as you mentioned, that's under another code. But this is kind of to give some guidelines to those, because we've gone into this more so even into this culture of having home occupations. And so what we're trying to do is give some balance to that and to lessen the calls that Danny and Sabina get about, hey, you know, there's a FedEx truck 4 times a day at my neighbor's, and I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of traffic and it's bothering my sense of enjoyment. And so this just kind of gives us some parameters and you know, some triggers that we can use then to address those issues. And that's all this is.
You're right. This is how this all started. The guy has a repair shop
Okay, right.
that's blatantly in violation,
And it
but there's
can't be-
nothing
they
can
haven't
be
able to shut
done.
it down.
Nothing can be done to close it down.
Right.
So that's how we started this process. And then it evolved in case, you know, where architects have little businesses and you don't want to violate what they're doing.
Right.
Because they're not really harming society in this case. But you got the guy who starts off as a plumber by himself.
Right.
And then he's got 2 trucks coming.
Yep.
He's got 3 trucks parking. Then guys are coming and going.
Right.
I mean, it just turns into a monster, but they never move to a building.
Yes, sir. And that's what this is. This is just to give parameters and to give someone an idea, hey, when I reach that level, I need to go find some commercial space.
Exactly.
Right.
We put something in there too, Mike, about the amount of people that can come on a daily basis. You can be a piano teacher, you can be a tutor, whatever. I think it says 5
Yeah.
students per day,
Okay.
something like that. But I agree, I think that's an excellent idea.
But we worked with Danny on this whole thing, talking about, is this enough?
Yeah.
Is this too much? Is this enough?
Right,
Trying
I'm-
to get, because without it being where you can do something with it, it's really meaningless. But you know, we're only looking for the exception. We're not trying to make the rule, Brody's gotta be registered or we're gonna go get him.
Right. Right, and obviously there's a difference, you know, if I'm consulting and I never am seeing clients at home, it's
Yeah.
all on the phone, that's different than
Nobody's gonna
selling widgets out the back door and I
Right.
have a constant
That's
stream
it.
of cars. So
And we
let's try to,
we kind of went through this outside storage thing too, because we first started out, well, if you can't see it from the street, it's okay, but then we thought about, well, if I'm a neighbor and my guy repairs, my next door neighbor repairs air conditioning window units or whatever it is, and he's got 50 of them in his backyard, every time I go out in my backyard, that's what I see.
right,
There's one area that we had to struggle with, and you need to really look at firearm sales,
oh, right. Okay.
because that's really
I think we actually just eliminated that.
no, it's on here.
Yeah, but it's prohibited.
But it's not, it may not be prohibited by,
The state of Texas.
well, I mean, no, the federal government. I mean, I know guys that sell guns out of their house all the time.
I know the situation that came up, this has probably been 5 years, was a guy that was selling them and then using his garage as kind of I don't know how he did it, I'm not into guns, but he was using his garage, he was firing them off of the garage into
Barrel.
something. Right, and so that was a problem.
Barrel with water in it?
Right, right, and so that was, you know,
Oops.
the neighbors were obviously involved, and that's from our perspective, those are the type of phone calls that Danny gets, and then he's
Right.
like, I just need some help, you know?
Right.
Well, he originally came to us because he had no way to really enforce anything.
Right, right, and that's what I told him, I said, they came to me and I said, well, we can't just take a definition and then go into court and expect a jury to make a finding on a definition, we need to take that and make some regulations.
So, Mike, if you're gonna peruse this from a legal perspective for the city, I think we're not in a position to really take action
I
on it.
think we defer,
We
do what we,
Table it.
however we
Oh, yeah,
have to
sure.
do.
Right, I would,
just table it.
to suggest you table it, and what I'll do is I'll be back at some form or fashion the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
okay. Motion to table.
I make the motion we table.
Have a motion to
A
table
second.
and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Good discussion. This has been a lot of years without anything so far. It's worth taking time to look at it. Okay. I think we're down to 4A, consideration and action, final plat, consideration and action concerning the proposed final plat for Comanche Trace Phase 13, a subdivision containing 13.4 acres of land more or less out of the William Watt Survey, number 65, abstract number 364 in the city of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, being part of the 1,131.78 acres conveyed from Crystal Land Company, LLC to Comanche Trace Ranch and Golf Club, LLLP, by a special warranty deed executed the 17th day of September, 1998, and recorded in volume 9071, page 698 of the Real Property Records of Kerr County, Texas, file number 2017-061. Sabina?
If you'll recall earlier this year, this property came before you again as an annexation for your recommendation, and you also recommended RC zoning for this tract. On June the 1st, you approved a preliminary plat, and this final plat matches the preliminary plat, and we recommend approval.
So moved.
Yeah, we don't have to have a public hearing on this, so I hear a motion to approve as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Any staff reports?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion we adjourn.
I have a second. Second. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Next meeting to me is
The, what's today, the 21st.
first.
Yes, sir.
Feel
like it worked.
Yeah.